Renegade Radio. Tune in, don't be shy. With Frankie Slauson leading the ride. Monday nights, the airwaves come alive with voices in the dark like shadows they survive. Join the rendezvous, let the stories weave. Frankie leads the night, you just gotta believe.
It's the Red River Valley Motorcyclist Spirit of America Bike and Car Show, Saturday and Sunday, May 3rd and 4th at the Alara Center in Grand Forks, and they're looking for sponsors and vendors. This is a great opportunity to get your business noticed by thousands of people for this 2 long days of this awesome event. If you'd like to get your business noticed, or if you'd like a booth, contact Sarah, 763-568-1946, or Dennis at 701-741-5205. There'll be a raffle with over $90,000 worth of prizes, including a Polaris 1000 North Star Ultimate Crew Cab Ranger, a Harley-Davidson Street Glide, and Polaris Sportsman 570, with the net proceeds benefiting the Veterans Honor Flight of North Dakota, Minnesota. And veterans are absolutely free. Find out more by going to rrvmnd.org. Red River Valley Motorcyclist Spirit of America Bike and Car Show, Saturday and Sunday, May 3rd and 4th at the Alara Center in Grand Forks.
Just the heavens beat to a call. Yeah, you can see the flames go into you. I call passion. Let's call it a heavenly fire. Never on now, will you? If I was darkness, she was light, and she was day and I was night. And in the thunder of my heart I heard the truth. Lost in desire. Can't stop the fire. I want her all the time. All now, and my hunger is bright. Just go to heaven through the windows of your eyes. See the meaning of our lives. Beyond the light, 2 fates intertwine in a dance they call passion. Lost in desire. Can't stop the If I was darkness, she was light, and she was day and I was night. And in the thunder of my heart I heard the truth beating. I said, can't stop the fire. Lost in desire.
under starlit nights so grand, where the wolves' howls resound, I find my peace and stand on this hallowed ground. Hear the coyote's mournful serenade, a song of wild untamed, in the heart of the Black Hills, where my spirit's flame is claimed. Ride the trails of ancients past, where secrets still reside.
Renegade Radio, tune in, don't be shy. With Frankie Slauson leading the ride. Monday nights, the airwaves come alive. With voices in the dark, like shadows they survive. Join the rendezvous, let the stories weave. Frankie leads the night, you just gotta believe.
And we're here. How's it going?
Good. Okay, good to see you again, Frankie.
Yeah, good to see you too, man. I mean, it's been at least over a year, I would say.
Yeah, maybe more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the last time you were on here was probably I think it was probably in February, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it all blurs together, but I definitely know Frankie Slauson. I know a big.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, we're glad to have you on here today to do this little special interview. And just so you know that even though it might say live on the corner, I don't know if it says that on your end or not. It's not live. I'm actually just recording it.
Okay.
I don't know why it says live, but it's not being broadcasted at all. So
that's fine. Even if it was, I wouldn't mind.
Well, you said that to wait till after the 12th, so it's I'm doing what you asked me to do.
Thank you. And I just need to let you know that I need to be on something else in about approximately an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. I don't know how long we'll keep you, but it won't be that long.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm just happy to have you. I figure, since the last time you were on the show, you got interviewed by everybody, but I feel like you didn't get a proper interview. I feel like I could have done a little bit better, doing it myself, in a way. Nothing against my crew or anything, but sometimes I just throw a lot of things at them, and they either accept it or they don't or whatever. Most of the time they accept everything that I throw at them when it comes to guests and stuff. So sometimes it's I'll throw a guest on them that they might not know a lot about, but at the end of the day we make it all work anyway. So but I figure with you, since you've been around and since you're a legendary figure as you are in the industry for film, television, wrestling, everything, I had to have you on again. So I'm happy. Even if you didn't have anything to promote, I still want to talk to you because wrestling is one thing that's near and dear to my heart. I've been a pro wrestling fan for almost all my life, since at least the early 90s, since the days of WrestleMania 6 and the early days of WCW. And now we're on the road to WrestleMania. So, I mean, do you always get excited around this time of the year? As a fan?
I do. I get excited during this time of year too. It's because you feel the energy, building. It starts with the Royal Rumble, and now Elimination Chamber has become a significant part in an era where you have two WWE champions. And so each thing leads to the other. And last year, WrestleMania 40, you had a cliffhanger at the end of night 1 that led to night 2. So in some ways, the storytelling has been tied together in WWE a bit more. And I will say that AEW, I'm seeing a lot more advanced storytelling than people were giving them credit for some months back. So I see both companies making their product more interesting.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, they. I agree. You know, AEW has really come a long way too. I get sick and tired of hearing like the dirt sheets, you know, trying to say that it's the end of AEW. It's the end. They can't sell arena. It's like, yeah, they can. You know, I mean, it's mostly up to the fans, but they're still delivering us a fair and good product every week to week.
Well,
So.
also, you also have to look at other companies that were upstart companies. They were not around for 6 years. You know, those companies flamed out pretty quickly. And historically, there were territories where you had two rival promotions. You had, in Brian R. Solomon's book on the original Sheik, he talks about how Detroit had a promotion where people were loyal to Dick the Bruiser, and there was another promotion that was run by the original Sheik, Ed Farhad. And there was a period where it was a boom because fans could go to both. And after a while, they got burned out on wrestling. And the same thing happened when you had the Rougeaus and the Vachons running counter promotions in Montreal. I mean, here we've had AEW started, I think, in 2019. And 2025, and they're still here, and they're still, they're on Max, and WWE is on Netflix, and so it's, they're not at WWE's level, but if you're a wrestling fan, there's wrestling to watch.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm just, like I said, I just always been a big fan of the industry, wrestling no matter what. And one thing I will say for sure is that with WrestleMania coming up and today being Elimination Chamber Saturday, or just for the pay-per-view anyway, it's a very exciting.
It's supposed to be after the Elimination Chamber. This is airing after the 12th.
Well, yes, but as of this recording anyway.
Yes, we're recording it. Yes,
we'll do a little.
This is a little secret to those watching at home. We've recorded this in advance.
That's right. That's right. So we don't know what has happened tonight after after it's done, but we'll know obviously afterwards. But it's when this comes out. But anyway, it's just it's an exciting time, and I was hoping to go to WrestleMania here this year, but it was supposed to be. I wish it would have been in Minneapolis. I don't understand why Minneapolis always gets scrubbed because I live in Minnesota, so it's like
I'll be in Minnesota this week. I have a full-time gig as a true crime producer, and I'll be in northern Minnesota, not far from Hibbing this week.
Oh yeah, I'm not that far from that area either. I live in I live in a little town called Brooks right now.
Where is it near? Is it near Duluth or is it near Hibbing?
No, it's probably on the other side of Duluth. It's on number 2 though. I mean, I could definitely get to it's on the same highway. It takes you to Duluth.
Yeah. I actually, I know this is we're sidetracking from wrestling, but I actually enjoy the people up there quite a bit, and I enjoy the culture. And even though, I didn't grow up in that culture, I admire that when it's minus 13 degrees, people are out snowmobiling and they're ice fishing, and they're not running from the cold, they're embracing the cold. And I enjoy people who, they, instead of complaining about the elements, they make it part of who they are.
Yeah. Well, we do. I mean, it's Minnesota's definitely a different type of area, that's for sure. Depending on what part of Minnesota you're talking about, because every part it seems like has its own meaning, I guess.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of facets to Minnesota, and what's also great, and let's bring the conversation back to wrestling, is I can walk into a bar or a restaurant in Minnesota, and even young people, they're aware of their wrestling history. Like they can talk about Vern Gagne, and they can talk about the High Flyers, and they can talk about the Crusher and Mad Dog Vachon. And it's very impressive that, even though my new book talks about how WWE or WWF at the time worked hard to drive the old American Wrestling Association out of business, the people of Minnesota still have a fond spot for the storied promotion.
Yeah, yeah, they do. I always hear stories about the good old AWA and how you know, in a way, it kind of changed the revolution of wrestling. You know, as far
Well,
as the
I
open
mean,
territory. You know, I would
yeah, I
say.
mean, look at who came from the AWA. I mean, look, this is my new book over here. This is why
Yeah,
I'm here today. Bigger, better, better. WrestleMania 3 and the year it all changed. But you know, you think about the talent that came from the AWA to what was then the WWF. You had Hulk Hogan, Jesse the Body Ventura, and let's just talk about, people who were not really wrestling personalities. I mean, Bobby the Brain Heenan was a manager and he'd bump around, but he was a manager and a talker. And Mean Gene Okerlund. I mean, those guys were as critical a part of this of the product as anyone. And those guys got taken away from the AWA, but they were AWA staples beforehand.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And me and Gene's from South Dakota. He was born in Sisseton, South Dakota.
Pretty cool. Yeah. And I remember, yeah,
on the interstate for me, it's not like South Dakota is like what 3-4 hours away at the border. And so his hometown's like probably maybe 5 hours away from me.
Yeah, well, we'll have to start doing an Indiegogo to get a statue of him over
there. Yeah. I'm surprised. It's like ever since the guy passed away, it's like, people talk about him, but they kind of, he doesn't get talked about enough.
No, he doesn't. And he was such a great talent. Just his gestures and the way he would turn a phrase and the way he'd kind of recoil when a villain would say things a certain way. He put his hand, go, WrestleMania 3. It was every gesture meant something.
Yeah, his quirkiness was just I you don't really see too much of that really at all. Maybe
not like that.
Pat McAfee or Pat McAfee or whatever they call him.
Pat McAfee, he has his shtick, but it's not the same as, in my opinion. As Mean Gene.
Sure. Well, let's talk about your book here because I don't want to keep you on too long because I have other things that I got to do today as well. So let's talk about bigger, better, or bigger, better, I should say.
Bigger, better, WrestleMania 3 in the year it all changed.
Yeah,
available in bookstores and online. Published by ECW Press and ECW. For those who don't know, but it's easy to make this mistake. That does not stand for Extreme Championship Wrestling. It is for Essays on Canadian Writing, because that's what it originally was. It was Essays on Canadian Writing. It was, and it's still, they're out of Toronto. They've done a ton of wrestling books and a lot of other books, and they've done fiction. And initially they, existed to promote Canadian writers, but I guess they made a couple of exceptions, and I'm the beneficiary for that.
Well, you're from New York, so that's close to Canada. I mean, if anything.
So, and who knows, we're all going to be one country soon. Not just kidding. I don't want to bring that up. I don't even want to start with that.
I thought it was worse when Disney was taking over everything and stuff. I don't get it. We live in such a parallel world now. It's like it's just amazing how things have just people are just letting everything just happen as it is.
My last book was about pro wrestling during the COVID era, and that is called, same publisher, it was called Follow the Buzzards: Pro Wrestling in the Age of COVID-19. And during the COVID era, I point out, wrestling could no longer be escapism because wrestling was impacted by the outside world and you couldn't fully hide it if you're wrestling in an empty building. And so I said at that stage, no, you couldn't distinguish between what was real and what was wrestling. And I think that's the one aspect of the COVID era that's continuing today.
Yeah, with Triple H taking over, especially for WWE, things have definitely changed. There might be some things that are still the same that I've noticed, but it's changed. It's different.
It's changed. Look, I think it's universally acknowledged that the product is, much better under Triple H, and you have to look at the, just the accomplishments of the developmental system of the performance center of NXT and the impact that's had on the main roster. And, you know, he still has these people who are, maybe it's their first day of training today. And these are people who are going to be headlining in 10 years. And, you know, I don't know if any other promoter has ever had that kind of far-sighted vision. I mean, maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, you know, now they're kind of bringing back, you know, like, okay, we had, you know, many years ago, we had that competition called Tough Enough. And now we got LFG.
LFG, yeah.
Is LFG supposed to be different than Tough Enough, or is it kind of the same?
I think maybe it's an homage. Maybe it's more of a modern version of it. You know, what I love most about LFG is that afterwards WWE Rivals airs, and I'm on a couple of those shows, so I get to see myself on TV sometimes.
Yeah, you're just a lucky guy, I tell you. You know, but that's what I mean. That's why I was so happy to get to know you and stuff, because, you know, you're a master of all trades here. I mean, you've been around, you've done almost everything you could possibly do, you know, when it comes to being a magazine editor, to being,
I've never been an editor. I've just been a writer, reporter.
Or a writer, I mean, you know, a head writer.
And, you know, for a long time, you know, coming from a working class family, I wasn't very comfortable speaking. I was much more comfortable writing, because I knew I could read over my writing and fix words, but I was nervous about the fact that I might mispronounce a word, because I wasn't raised by people with proper diction, and my friends didn't speak properly, and I have a very thick New York accent, which I celebrate, but at times I would pronounce things and I feared that I might sound a little ignorant to people. And it was really the book I wrote about John Lennon in 2010 when I really began doing a lot of media. And now, you know, it's evolved to the point where, you know, they call me WWE historian, and I'm on these A&E documentaries, and finally I feel comfortable speaking, and I'm not worried that people are going to go, boy, he seems like a nice guy, but, you know, not that articulate.
Well, I would beg to differ. I would say that you are you are everything that you should be when it comes to this. You know, you look like a guy who knows some stuff. You know, just by even if you didn't have your historical background, you look like a guy who could tell me something. You know, that's just, you know.
And, you know, I mean, my mother could tell you things too, but it was usually people in the neighborhood. Oh, sure, she could talk about. She could tell you about Elvis. She could tell you about J-Lo. There were certain things where she definitely was an expert.
Sure. But that's what I mean, though. It starts with everything that's going around in your area. Then it expands.
Yes, that's right. That's right. And, you know, you could make the parallel to wrestling. You know, it's like, okay, you start out being, you know, knowing a lot about professional wrestling, and then you apply that to other things. It's up to the individual. I mean, look at a guy like The Rock. He started out as a in-ring performer, and look at him today. He's one of the biggest stars ever.
Oh yeah, he's the final boss character. I didn't think that was going to work. You know, I still kind of question it a little bit, but it's like they think they want to give it a shot. So I mean, we might as well just see what happens, and, you know, see what their plans are, because it's a different character and it fits him. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it fits him, but it's like, he doesn't see. I mean, unless this whole thing with Cody and all that happened, or whatever, with the whole soul thing. I mean, they're talking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where that's going to go either.
Possibility of it being maybe a
legit thing to question, because it's like, wait, I want your soul. Is he the Undertaker? But I don't know yet. You know, I remember when the Undertaker was starting to do his thing, you know, being a little bit confused if it was going to work. In fact, I remember, I'm pretty sure it was a short flight from Detroit to Grand Rapids, talking to, you know, a young Mark Calloway on that flight early on in his run as the Undertaker, like at the very beginning. And he was hoping it was going to work. You know, nobody knows at first whether something's going to work. I mean, you know, here's my book that's coming out? I mean, are people going to love this book, or are they going to forget them? Are they going to pick it up and put it down?
No, I think true wrestling fans, if they really respect the business and they respect you as an individual, they'll treat it just as good as they treat the Bible, and I'm saying that in a good way.
I sure hope so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously WrestleMania 3 was the inspiration of why you wrote the book, but I mean,
yeah.
I mean, are you sharing us tidbits of stuff that we might not have heard before, or is this?
I mean, look, I speak to people. I mean, in the book, not only do I speak to people who were participants in WrestleMania 3 and rely on interviews I did with folks who are no longer with us, like Mean Gene Okerlund and Roddy Piper, interviews I've done in the past, but I interviewed people like Greg Gagne, who talks about what it was like to be in the AWA as WWE was taking over, and David Crockett, the brother of Jim Crockett Jr. And it's like, Jim Crockett Jr. is fighting the hardest fight against WWF. And, still, Vince is finding a way to like clock him on the side. And, what it was like to be over there. And, I talked to Cowboy Bill Watts, who ran a great promotion. I mean, I thought that I remember for one brief period, we were able to get Bill Watts' promotion, which was based in Oklahoma and Louisiana, on New York TV. Didn't last. It may probably been a couple of months. But that was in terms of storytelling and believability, that was like as good of a promotion as I've ever seen any place. And, he talks about how they're at the Superdome in New Orleans, and, they're never selling out. They're not at Vince McMahon levels. But they're drawing, 25 to 30,000 people. And, once Vince begins his national run, they're lucky to get 10 or 12,000 people. And then it's less and less. And now, because the promotions are all suffering, they're kind of, everyone's suspicious of each other. Like he has everybody off balance. And I think that's a fascinating piece of the history. It's like mentally he got into these guys' heads. Not only is he taking talent and paying talent money they've never been paid before. Not only is he grabbing TV slots, he has these promoters questioning every decision they've ever made because he's violating the time-honored traditions of the business. Like, Hulk Hogan, traditionally, that wasn't a guy you made the champion. He'd be a challenger. He'd be a big bronze giant who would come in. Yeah. The idea was you needed a champion who was a giant killer, like Bruno Sammartino, Vern Gagne, even a Nick Bockwinkel, would wrestle these bigger guys, and they, find a way to outcraft them, or they'd prove they were tougher. Even Ric Flair, he'd bump all over the place for people, but they'd be on the verge of beating him. And then Hogan comes in and he's flexing his pythons, and he's, giving people, whipping them into the ropes and giving them a big foot and then dropping the leg. And he doesn't have really an amateur wrestling background, although he could get on the mat and wrestle when he wrestled in Japan. But these guys were like, oh, that's not the kind of guy you make a champ. And now Vince has Hulk Hogan, and the whole world is into it, even people who aren't wrestling fans. And so if you're a promoter, you go to thinking, have I ever been right about anything? And with the rest of the wrestling promotions off kilter, that's where Vince just keeps hitting them harder and harder and harder. And that's such a big part of the story. Oh,
yeah. That's sounds like an excellent read anyway, just by how you describe it, because it's like, WrestleMania 3 was a big WrestleMania, but there have been other ones too. But I mean, it probably was the first one it probably had more of a change to the way wrestling was than the first one did.
Well, it did. See, WrestleMania 1, was unique because you had major A-list celebrities involved. But, at the time, there was the assumption that, well, it's a fad. wrestling's in now. Maybe next year it'll be something else. I remember even at the time thinking maybe next year it'll be roller derby will come back. Yeah. And, you know, and it kept going. And interestingly, there was this partnership with MTV, because that's where teenagers and preteens would go home and watch music videos. And so that was I mean, the Snapchat or YouTube, those are probably antiquated references to whatever the hottest thing is now. And, you know, like WWE in its scope, it's almost exceeded, and MTV at a certain point faltered as streaming services, you know, came in and replaced that. And, you know, and things like, you know, Snapchat and Instagram, where you can, you know, put things up and get that immediate gratification. But Vince knew how to plug into what was current, as does WWE now. Like these partnerships they made, you know, even the arrangements they're making with college athletes now. You can watch people compete on the amateur wrestling mat or in football, and they can train at the performance center off season. And so it's cultivating, like, again, another generation of superstars. And it's quite impressive.
Oh, very, very much impressive. And well, I appreciate having you on here. I don't want to cut the interview too short, but I mean, for anybody that wants to be able to purchase your book, how can they do so?
Well, what they could do is they could go to Google and they can type in bigger, better, badder, WrestleMania 3 and the year it all changed. And they can buy it online. It's everywhere online where you can purchase a book. You can also go to your bookstore and either purchase it off the shelf or request it. You know, I'm a big proponent of still patronizing bookstores, but it's available. And, you know, hopefully it goes into a second and a third printing as long as people demand to keep reading it.
Oh, absolutely. And I hope it does really well for you, especially around the time of the year with WrestleMania, you know, around the corner. So it's like,
well, yeah, I mean, that's why they put it out at this time.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I will be in Vegas, by the way, WrestleMania week. I haven't firmed up the dates yet, but I will be doing some signings, including at my good buddy Randy Tyson's bar, DDT Downtown. And that's named specifically after Jake the Snake Roberts DDT. It is a professional wrestling themed bar. He had one in Brooklyn, and that's where we really bonded as friends. And he decided to move it to Vegas. And I think his timing is impeccable, and it will be very crowded WrestleMania week. But I will definitely be doing a signing there, both to meet potential readers and hang out with Randy and his wonderful wife, Susie.
Oh, absolutely. And I hope that this WrestleMania, you know, be just as good as WrestleMania 9 was, because, you know, knowing as remembering WrestleMania 9 as much as I do, I really feel like this one's going to really, I mean, it probably will overshadow it a little bit because of how much bigger it is now. But it's nice to see that it's in a place like Vegas, you know, at least.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Yeah, it will overshadow it because it's 2 nights now. Yeah. I think, you know, and it was a much smaller facility for WrestleMania 9, but it was cool. And this will be, and I mean, I think long term, this will be, because there are so many more eyeballs on the product now that this will be remembered by more people. And also now you have these kids who are watching, who will grow into adults who will be in their 40s and 50s and reminiscing about either being in Vegas or watching it, you know, watching it with their parents, or maybe just in their rooms, or maybe with their friends. So, yeah.
Well, I appreciate you, Keith, and thanks again for letting me spend a little time with you here and talking wrestling, because, you know, I
was looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to then watching us together online, Frankie.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we appreciate you, man, and thanks again for everything.
Thank you,
I'll
buddy.
always be a supporter, man.
Thank you. I appreciate, and I'm a supporter of you.
Oh, thank you. We'll have to get you on again, I'm sure.
Thank you. Good,
All
please.
right, bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks.
And that was Keith Elliot Greenberg. Like I said, magazine writer, historian, crime guy. I mean, he's done it all. I mean, just look him up. He's proud to have him as a friend of Renegade Radio for sure, especially a new friend because we met him last year. But I've known about the guy for quite a long time. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this little recorded interview here on YouTube and wherever else I put it. And I hope you guys all enjoy it. I'm Frankie Sausage. We'll see you again for another great edition of Frankie Sauce's Renegade Radio. And keep it rocking. Bye-bye.